Deerfield Fantasy Football. As always, I am your host at Hot BFF with 2Ps, coming to you from St. Louis, Missouri, coming off a raucous 4th of July weekend that involved a lot of sun, multiple types of golf, a lot of alcohol, at least one hangover, some less than kosher decisions, and yeah, it was a good time. Dan Thury, down in Springfield, Illinois, joining me from the comforts of his home. Dan, how are you?
I'm good. It's funny that you mentioned, some poor decisions, some different types of golfing and a bunch of drinking. Thursday, your boy was pretty fucked up. So shout out to Zach, who's ever, if he's for some reason listening, sorry for making some poor decisions when it comes to alcohol over there. But other than that, I've had 3 days to recover, so I'm good there.
I mean, poor decisions. I ended up with Malort at one point.
Whoa.
I ended up doing a shot of that. So
oh god,
that was
for our listeners who doesn't know what Malort is, because I know there's people out there who doesn't. It's fucking terrible liquor.
It's so you take the black licorice of Jaeger and then take the other redeeming qualities of Jaeger away from it, and that's Malort. It's basically clear black licorice, and it's terrible. The worst thing I've ever tasted, I'm pretty sure. And you want to drink something else right after you take it, and it just tastes worse.
It just lingers. There's a thing out there that people like to take photos and videos of people having it for the first time. There's one floating around of me at work taking it for the first time, and I apparently had a perfect form Malort face.
Yeah, I didn't see my face, but I know I was trying to tough through it and doing a bad job at it. None of us lost any digits, Ghost, though, so that's good. Jason Pierre-Paul teaching us all a valuable lesson.
Of course.
And on to today's show. First off, before we get started, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Untapped. That is Beerfield FF. Facebook and YouTube, Beerfield Fantasy Football. On YouTube, give us a subscription, give us a like. So you can come hang out with us every Sunday, mostly, or whatever day we decide to record. Ask questions, shoot your opinions, like them or not. We will respond to them, and just generally have a good time. So that's cool. We do have merch available, t-shirts and hats, email or Twitter or snail mail, postcard, whatever, Dan, for those. Coming up, though, outside of all the normal stuff, we will be doing a live set and have a booth set up at the Midwest Fantasy Football Expo that is taking place on August 18th, I believe, in Canton, Ohio. MidwestFFExpo.com for tickets. Promo code beer to save $5. So if you're in driving distance, just looking for a place to get away, hotels aren't bad. Go see the Hall of Fame, hang out with us, spend a weekend in Canton.
Yeah, I mean, it's only $15 for the expo, $5 off, as we just said, for the promo code. I believe it's from 12 to 6 there. Bunch of great guys out there. We're just there to have a good time, shoot out some knowledge. Hopefully we don't, make two fools of ourselves, but, it's
network and meet people. So network and meet people. That's what it's all about.
Oh, yeah.
All right, in today's show, we are continuing with our division preview series. 2 weeks left of this. We're talking about the AFC West. So get into the Chiefs. We'll talk about the Tyreek Hills situation, the Damien Williams hype over there. We'll talk about the Chargers and the Mike Williams hype that's coming out of that. We'll get into the changes with the Broncos and the Raiders, talk about what to expect out of those teams, and generally break down a division where every team should have some varying amount of fantasy value. So definitely going to be some grabs here, probably into the later rounds as well. But before we get started, as always, we got to let you know what is fueling us today.
What's fueling Beerfield?
All right, Dan, what are you drinking on?
I'm drinking on Triptychs. These aren't the blueberries you're looking for. It's a tart ale with blueberry puree. We may or may have had this on the show before. We couldn't figure it out, but regardless, updated version if it has been. I'll give you guys my my full thoughts on that shortly.
Yep, these aren't the blueberries, one that I've had before too, so I'll be able to chime in on that. I am drinking Clear Days. It is a juicy IPA, not a hazy IPA. They are from Unita Brewing out of Salt Lake City, Utah. So full review on that later. The only thing I got right now is I finally learned how to pronounce this brewery's name, which I'm pretty sure we'd both been doing wrong the 2 additional times they'd been on the show. And I'm guessing at the number 2. That's not actually a fact. I don't know that they've been on twice. I know that they've been on at least once though.
Have they? They probably have. I probably picked them up once.
I think I had them at one point too, honestly.
Okay.
I think it was a last minute thing. All right. So we will let you know what we think with those about halfway through the main segment. Before we do that, we got to get into the news.
News.
All right, kind of a weird week in news where there's no real injury updates or anything to give. Camps out, slow time. So it's all just, it's hype, it's people making projections, and it's legal matters. So let's go ahead and start off with 2 legal matters. So there's a report that came out last week about Kareem Hunt being involved in a bar altercation. Cleveland Plain Dealer has since reported that Kareem Hunt was questioned outside of a Cleveland bar Friday night, but no charges were filed. The report went on to say that no police report, body camera, or other documentation existed related to an incident involving Hunt, and the bar's owner was reportedly unaware of any physical altercation or scuffle. So it sounds like that was much ado about nothing, and there likely won't be any additional action taken against Kareem Hunt outside of the 8-game suspension he already has.
Yeah. I just think, I mean, this is a good thing for Hunt if you can, that this is, I guess, been pushed aside. It was nothing really made of. But it also speaks to him. He needs to make better decisions still. I know you and I have talked about this off air about a handful of times. I think he needs to kind of take the Des Bryant approach, maybe the Browns should, and just have him be surrounded with people that aren't going to put him into any sort of situation. Probably avoid going to bars here at this point until the season's over with. But for those of you out there that have bought Hunt, you should be fine.
I got to take the devil's advocate approach here, and I'm not defending the 8-game suspension on Kareem Hunt or anything that started with that, because that's absolutely earned, deserved, and probably too light. But what's the guy supposed to do? Not have a life? I mean, wrong place, wrong time. It sounds like he was questioned, like he may have witnessed something, and nothing goes down. There's only so much incriminating via the court of public opinion you can do with somebody, and it's also not fair to athletes because they have to live their life in the limelight to not be able to go out and have a normal life. If something breaks out around you, you're automatically associated, even though you may or may not have had anything to do with it. I don't know the whole situation that happened there in Cleveland, but that's the alternative thing I take. For his fantasy value, it's easy to sit back here and say, yeah, he probably should stay out of all that. If from an NFL perspective, for his career, he should probably stay out of that, because all it takes is being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and you're more screwed than you already are. But the flip side of that is there's the human aspect to it as well.
Oh, no, of course. And, it's sad because it's not just with athletes. It's really anybody that's got notoriety to them. They're just targets. People are looking for paydays. People are looking for their own type of clout. It's just he's got a bigger one on his back. But regardless of all that, it's good to see that at least nothing came more of this, and in hopes that he can continue to get back on the right track.
Yep. Speaking of people that need to make better decisions and in the wrong place at the wrong time, Ezekiel Elliott's not going to be suspended for his May altercation with security guard in Las Vegas. Apparently it was a shove in which he apologized to the security guard immediately, apologized to the NFL. The difference with him and Hunt is this did happen, but apparently I'm sorry, and it's not a big of enough deal to mess with him. We're good on the Zeke front. So he's not expected to face any discipline for that.
Yeah, he continues to make poor decisions after poor decision. And one of these times, even if it's not on its own merit and not on his own fault, he's going to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. He already has, one to merit on his card already. If he fucks up again, he could be done, forever. And that's, losing millions and millions and millions of dollars when you're setting yourself up to not really have much afterwards because you keep having all these legal fees and shit.
Yep, pretty much. But I mean, just little stupid stuff. He's got to stay out of that too. It's the same. Take what we said about Kareem Hunt: rinse, wash, repeat.
Yeah.
The third item that I have for news this week is not one that is related to suspension, but one that should have an eye kept on it. There's growing sentiment that running back Josh Jacobs is not going to be at camp when rookies report on July 23rd. He has yet to sign his rookie deal, and we have seen, probably most notably with Roquan Smith last year, where if these guys refuse to sign their rookie deal until late in camp, you could be missing time. But also as a rookie, and a rookie running back at that, you're going to be missing valuable reps. You're going to be missing valuable time to prove yourself. And you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball with talent at that point, and you got to start looking at it from a fantasy perspective. So what do you think the impact is if Josh Jacobs doesn't report until late in camp, or doesn't report, or doesn't sign?
He'll be a late bloomer, would be the best case scenario. I was already becoming pretty cool on him. I think the hype on him has gotten too far. We'll touch on his fantasy outlook when we get to the Raiders here in a little bit. But just a quick, I guess, just preview is, I don't think he was a guy that was going to see over 250 touches or 225 touches this season, regardless. And this sets them back even further. And they already have 2 running backs on this roster that could have 2 clear defined roles as a belt or as a first and second down and a pass catching back. So if Jacobs falls behind, you could see some similar events to what Penny had to deal with last year, with Chris Carson and Mike Davis.
That is true. Penny was just because of injuries, but he also got a late start. Yes. And once you get behind that 8 ball, you could be looking at, you're going to have to try to earn it in games versus in training camp, which is inherently harder. It dings your fantasy value, and you may not see full bell cow work until next year. More on the Raiders' backfield situation, as Dan mentioned, though, later.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to our Drinking the Kool-Aid segment. That's a newer one. I will, I guess, introduce it after the drop, because that's how these things are normally done.
Are we drinking the Kool-Aid?
All right, Drinking the Kool-Aid. Some hype coming out this week, mostly from beat writers and newspaper reporters, but it's always good to take these situations and address them, because that's how hype trains start. So we'll start off in Indianapolis. According to 1070 The Fan, the Colts are, quote, extremely bullish on wide receiver Deion Kane.
I'm not buying it just yet, but they were high on him last year before he tore his ACL. Now there's a lot more weapons there. You're going to get back Jack Doyle. You bring in Devin Funchess, you Jeff Paris Campbell, who's essentially the TY plus, a bit of a Deion, Kane clone, but better. I like Deion Kane. It's just, I don't see his path to targets as easily this year as there seems to be a clear 1, 2, and potentially 3.
Right. Deion Kane could mix in and flash a little bit this year, but he's not going to be fantasy relevant. What you're really looking for is Deion Kane to do enough for the team to feel like they don't need to buy into Devin Funchess beyond whatever he is this year. And that's where you're going to start to get your value out of Deion Kane. But as for right now, that is something that I'm shipping off to anybody else that believes it, and I don't think very many people do.
Yeah, I mean, it's all, if you believe it, you can probably get him for free. In most of your dynasty leagues, obviously not redraft worthy, and in hopes, like with me, who has him rostered in a few leagues, is that if he does take over for a bit of time, you can get him.
Yep. All right, Texans running back Deontay Foreman is, quote, light years ahead of where he was last year, per running back coach Danny Barrett.
Oh, sorry, I thought there was more.
No, sorry.
No,
that was a weird infliction.
That was a weird. I mean, that's good. Late bloomer last year because of the Achilles tear. I'm hyped on him a little bit. I know we talked about the AFC South a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks, 4
AFC
weeks.
South would have been 3 weeks ago, I think.
Yeah. So, I think he'll have a role. I think he'll be carving into Lamar Miller's role. So I am buying that. I'm not going to reach for him by any means, but I was already buying it. So,
I see a situation. I'm not running out to the store to buy this. If I'm in the store and happen to see it sitting on the shelves on like clearance or something like that, I'm gonna buy it. Like if it's on sale, 2 for $3 Deontay Foreman's, then Deontay Foreman grills, I'll buy it. But here's kind of why. Lamar Miller, first off, had a very, very good season last year. He's very, very efficient. And as much as I believe in Deontay Foreman, I'm throwing last year out as a waste. He did come back. He had a couple runs for negative yardage off the Achilles tear. He's had a full year to recover. He's still a young guy. I firmly believe he can come back from that, and he is going to have value. The question is how much. Lamar Miller went for 4.5 yards a carry last season, and if you got your lead back who's doing that, you're not really going to take carries away from him initially. So it's something that's not going to be handed to Foreman. He's going to come in, he's going to have to earn it, and Lamar Miller is going to have to be more Lamar Miller than whatever the efficient thing is that he was last season in order for that to happen. So, or for him to cut into any more than just kind of a role playing back in a handcuff. So
I completely agree, especially if this Texans team is good. They're going to want to put the best running back out there that's going to let them win, as they should be competing for a playoff spot this year, at least compete for the AFC South title still.
And Lamar Miller is also the better pass catcher, like
he is
by a lot.
Like light years better than what Foreman. I mean, Foreman really hasn't had opportunity to, but that's been part of Miller's game for his whole career. So
yeah, and that wasn't Foreman's thing in college either. He's between the back tackles bruiser who I think can get it done, is going to have a nice career. But, Lamar Miller I think is a better floor pick and actually at a decent value. And, if he can do what he did last year, then there's actually upside to him, which is weird to say because we never talked about Lamar Miller with upside.
No, I actually like buying Foreman in Dynasty this year for him to hopefully break out next year.
I do too, especially if a lot of people end up disappointed after the first few weeks this year. I think he's a buy.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to Cincinnati, the Athletic, Paul Danner, whatever, predicts Giovanni Bernard will see 11 to 13 touches per game in 2019.
This came out of left field. I know it just got tweeted out or I guess brought to light just a couple days ago. I'm not buying it, but I do see how it could happen, and I also see how it could happen with it not affecting Mixon as much as people think it may. With no true 3 on this roster in terms of wide receiver 3, J.O.'s a good pass catching back. He's got, he's 205 pounds. Maybe they try to use him out in the slot a little bit more, give him more of that Ty Montgomery type of role where he gets mixed work in that department. He gets banged up a lot too. It's just hard for me to see this team, who was very committed to Mixon last year, just not decide to use Bernard, who didn't miss a whole lot of time last year.
Yeah. I don't see him in that range. I had him in the 8 to 10 target range. I don't think 11 to 13 is going to be a thing. There's a situation where it could happen, but I really think that he's more change of pace than in a timeshare or a strict third down back. So I see it being 3 to 4 less targets than what's being predicted, which is the difference between a flex play and a not flex play. So don't buy into the Gio Bernard hype.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I was pretty far less on that anyways, too. I'm not sure there's a whole huge role for him, but I do see a path to it.
Yeah, I think I had him it was significantly less than 10 targets a week, actually. I think it was like 7 or 8.
10 touches?
10 touches, yep. The Buffalo News believes first-year tight end Dawson Knox has a chance to start week 1.
I'm not shocked.
Yeah, at face value, I believe that.
Here. Yeah. I'm still not buying him for fantasy value, but
no,
good. It's good for it. No, and of course, it's good for 2 tight end premium leagues with deep benches. If you're going, if you're in leagues with that type of scoring, but for your normal leagues,
good for Dynasty too. If startups are starting, there's not a lot of hype around Dawson Knox. Dawson Knox is a person that would have won a lot higher in the draft and had a lot more hype around him had he not been hurt most of the time and not been playing on a team that had at the time 3 potential NFL caliber wide receivers and 2 guys that were projected as first round picks in AJ Brown and DK Metcalf. So Dawson Knox had a lot of things that kind of overshadowed how talented of a tight end he really is. So if he does start week 1, I firmly believe that. I firmly believe he'll flash, and I'll firmly believe there's going to be hype around him. So go out and buy him if you're in a dynasty league right now and stash him because he's going to be dirt cheap, next to nothing at the moment. And I do think he is, as long as he can stay healthy, going to be decent.
You don't even have to buy him. He's probably free.
Probably free. Yep.
I think in our 2 tight end massive super flex 16 team league, I don't even think he got drafted. So maybe
I don't know.
he
I think
did.
I might have taken him. I'm not sure.
That'd be on brand if you did. So that'd be good.
All right, let's get to the LOL news of the week, which is featuring one of my favorite players to hate.
Laugh Out Loud news of the week.
Laugh Out Loud news of the week. This is a segment where we talk about what made, well, me laugh. I guess Dan can bring things to the table too if he sees anything ever. But as far as what made me laugh this week, as I was reading through and putting the news segment together, John Ross is hoping to, quote, reinvent himself this season by, drumroll, wait for it, changing his number from 15 to 11 and also putting Ross the Third on the back of his jersey. And that is going to make John Ross a fantasy and NFL relevant wide receiver. Changing his number and changing the name on the back of his jersey. Never mind the fact that he's struggling with the playbook, that he's been inconsistent, that he can't stay healthy. The number and the name.
He found his new rabbit's foot, I guess, for his lucky charm. Changing his jersey number and the name on the back of the jersey.
Yep, you heard it here first, folks. Go buy John Ross.
Yeah, go buy John Ross.
Just for that reason alone. It's all mental. Let's get into the division previews.
Division preview.
All right, division preview time. AFC West is the second to last division preview we have. If you want to listen to any of the previous divisions, which is everything other than the NFC West, please go back, check out those episodes. They're available everywhere we're available, so go listen to those. Today we are talking about the AFC West, as I think I've mentioned 2 or 3 times already. So we'll be going over the Broncos, the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Raiders. As always, the way this goes, we won't spend a lot of time on guys that we expect to be what we would call must-own. Guys that have been performing at the same level for a long time, and that's a high level, top 24 typically, where we know what they're going to be, where they're going to end up. There haven't been significant changes to impact those. Those are guys we'll consider must-owns, and then you get beyond that, we'll break down each team position by position. Going in alphabetical order, we'll end it by taking a shot at predicting the way the division goes, and we'll review a beer about halfway through. So, as always, the way the ABCs work, we're going to go ahead and start with the Denver Broncos. The Broncos are a team where I see nobody is must-own. There are going to be people high on Phillip Lindsay. There's going to be people taking shots at these wide receivers. That does not mean that there is not a piece that is worth owning on this team. There is not a piece that is a surefire thing that we don't need to talk about or break down the merits and the risk or the upside associated with players on this team. So let's go ahead. Joe Flacco, year 1 in Denver. Nobody's going out and clamoring for Joe Flacco. So taking a different approach on this, kind of what do you expect him to mean to this offense? Because nobody's really saying, hey, let's go draft Joe Flacco. That's not going to change. That's not going to be anything new. And that's the correct approach to take. But is he an improvement over Case Keenum?
No. I'm also going to say, I do apologize to the listeners out there. I didn't put as much time into the passing game as much as I would have hoped, because it's a complete clusterfuck and it's a complete toss up with the changes to the head coach, be more of a defensive -1. You bring in a new OC who's got 0 experience in the league in terms of being an OC and being a play caller. We're not going off of much here, but to go back to the Joe Flacco thing, there's just no touchdown upside to him. I think his career touchdown percentage is in the low 4s, which is respectable for the NFL. For fantasy, it's not. I had him projected at 560 attempts. I actually don't like that anymore. I want to bring that down more because I think this defense is going to be competitive and keep this team in games far more than it being blowouts, even against teams like the Chiefs, the Chargers, and playing the NFC North. But with that being said, he's nothing more than a very low end streaming option. He's rosterable in super flex and deep QB QB leagues because he's a starter. I do think he plays a full 16. I think this defense is going to be good enough to keep him in games long enough into the season long enough for him to be the main starter throughout. I'm not as high on Drew Lock as you are, but I think he's already probably a better quarterback for at least for their future. But in terms of Joe Flacco, no, I'm not going out there and getting him, but I do think he plays a full 16.
Yep. I also think he plays a full 16. I think he is historically a little bit more accurate than Case Keenum. It's the 1st time he's going to have any form of weapons around him since, I guess, Steve Smith, really. I guess the course of Michael Crabtree was there. But, I mean, since the Ravens lost Steve Smith, they didn't really do a good job of surrounding their guys. That being said, Flacco's the second worst quarterback I had playing 16 games as far as stat rating goes. Got him throwing the ball only 523 times, just 3,600 yards, 20 touchdowns, 12 picks. Not a lot of rushing floor to that. So he's not somebody, even in Superflex, really. I mean, you're going to want to go out and draft or go out and snap up. But I do think as far as accuracy goes overall, that he is going to be a bit better for these receivers. If anything, it's a small bump to them, not a huge one. And overall, as far as Drew Lock goes, barring an injury, I don't see him starting this year. He needs some seasoning. I think that if he can get a little bit of that and then come in maybe challenge to start next year, you're going to see better things out of him. He is the quarterback of the future, not Joe Flacco.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, moving on to the running back situation. Phillip Lindsay was a giant breakout, out of nowhere success last year. However, all the hype was around Royce Freeman, so Lindsay got absolutely no love, no nothing. How do you see that shaking out this year? Do you expect the same from Phillip Lindsay? Do you expect some regression? And then Royce Freeman in year 2, do we expect him to take a step forward?
I do expect a little regression for Phillip Lindsay, but I expect him to have more of a pass catching, like a pure pass catching role. I don't know if the team is going to keep Booker, Devontae Booker. He's still on the roster, I think, at the moment. Who was the team leader in targets last year for running backs. But in terms of just Lindsay himself, I think he was 5.4 clip per carry, which is great which is a good number to have. I think it's a little hard for him to maintain, just given him size. The fact that I have him losing carries to Royce Freeman, I think Royce is going to be the carry leader on this team. I think Lindsay will overall lead the team in touches and total yards. For that, I have Lindsay at 1,200 total yards and Freeman at 874. 8 touchdowns apiece for them because I think they're going to find ways to score. Obviously Royce will line up more of the goal line type of carries. Lindsay is good enough to score from about anywhere on the field. But I do believe in Royce Freeman's talent. The fact that he was fairly efficient with his work when he was healthy last year. It was just Lindsay was just ridiculously good and too good enough to keep him off the field. So Bryce obviously had to take a hit in that department. But then you bring in a whole new coaching staff. I think you're going to start to see some changes around the touches, and the fact that Lindsay got banged up last year suggests to me that he may not be a guy that you want to give 200 carries to and 250 plus touches to.
Yeah. You see it all the time with defensive head coaches where their philosophy is we're going to win with defense, we're going to manage the passing game, we're going to run the football. Vic Fangio is a defensive head coach. He's very defensive minded. Rich Scangarello comes in with very, very limited experience, no real OC experience. You can take what he came out under. I mean, you're still not looking at anything too heavy as far as the split between run pass. No. So as far as Phillip Lindsay goes, there are some things with Lindsay that scare me. I tend to like backs more when I look at their underlying stats and see that they're created for themselves. Lindsay's run block efficiency was 4th in the league compared to Royce Freeman 46th, and it's behind the same offensive line. So what that tells me is Lindsay's running more outside. The tackles are better run blocking than the guards are. Fine. Well, the Cowboys did some to address it, or not the Cowboys. The Broncos did some to suggest to improve that. They draft Dalton Reisner. They're going to have Ronald Leary coming back from injury, and that's 2/3 of their interior line. That bodes well for Royce Freeman. The other thing I don't like with Phillip Lindsay, just 45th in yards created, 48th in juke rate, 32nd in evaded tackles, and coming off the wrist injury, which is not healed quite right. I do agree that Lindsay leads this team as far as total yards go. I got him about 1,200 total yards, but I think he's a running back too. I'm not going to go out and draft him as my number one, and I think he's a running back too that's towards the middle to low part of that tier. I'm not buying him to have the same type of season he did last year. I'm buying a regression in the efficiency department and a regression in the touch department. I agree with Dan that Royce Freeman does lead this team in touches. I'm at just over 1,000 yards, just a hair, not all on the ground. I do have him getting a little bit of pass catching work, not near the volume that Phillip Lindsay does. He's going to be in that flex area, but he's going to have to prove it more than Lindsay is too. So that could adjust a bit based on training camp. But for right now, I think the improvements to the offensive line, especially at the middle, help Royce Freeman. I think this is a team that's going to want to run more between the tackles than outside. Also helps Royce Freeman. And there's just some underlying things with Phillip Lindsay that lead me to think that he could regress.
Yeah, he's been a very popular sell candidate in dynasty leagues, and he's, I think, someone that's been dropping a bit in his ADP for redraft leagues because of that. A lot of guys were high in Royce already who can now get him at a value where Phillip Lindsay has kind of reached his peak and started to fall off. He may keep falling off to where you can get him at a decent value towards August. But for right now, it's give me Royce at his value. I like Lindsay, but I agree with you. He's more of a low end RB2. And I don't love his ceiling unless Royce gets hurt.
Right. That's exactly it. And we've got to see Lindsay come back healthy too, which
That's true. That's very true.
There's that also. Speaking of people coming back healthy, you go to the wide receivers, and this is a group that has a lot of question marks around it as well. You got Deshaun Hamilton, Cortland Sutton entering year 2. Hamilton played most of last year banged up, and Sanders is coming back off of a torn Achilles. There's reports every week that says that Sanders is targeting week 1, that he's preparing for week 1, that everybody thinks he's going to be back by week 1, but will he be 100%?
I have him playing 14 games. We have to go with what we know, and what we know is that there's a good chance he could be playing. I do agree with you that he may not be 100% healthy, but to speak of this receiving core, this is a complete toss-up. You get a new quarterback, so there's no chemistry being built or has been built in the previous seasons. You get a new coaching staff, new play caller. We're not high on Joe Flacco. Flacco can make the receivers a bit better, but we don't know how the target distribution is going to be. A month sad. I do have Sanders leading the team in targets because I think if he is healthy, he's the most talented receiver even at his age. And I think he's going to be a guy that Flacco can lean on because of his veteran presence. Sutton and Hamilton, both 2-year guys, both battled with injuries and just battled getting playing time in that regard. Hamilton came on late last year, but so did Sutton, that even though it wasn't as high. Sutton fits Flacco in terms of his vertical game, which is why I like Sutton a little bit more than Hamilton. I have him and Hamilton pretty much splitting targets, 77 for Sutton and 80 for Hamilton. But it's the yards per reception that'll separate them and make Sutton more valuable. It's a bigger option in the zone. Hamilton could be a better PPR option for those leagues. Sutton could be, he could provide you more of the touchdown upside just given his frame and his size and his ability to win 50-50s and with his positioning. But I'm not going out and grabbing Sanders, Sutton, or Hamilton. I may take a stab at the last one that's left towards the end of the draft, but I'm not super thrilled about it.
Yeah, Emmanuel Sanders, I do think he'll be back week 1. I think it's going to be a slow reintegration, and I don't think he's going to be working downfield a lot. I see him working some more intermediate routes. I've got about 136 targets on the season, which is not too far off of where he was last year or in previous years. I don't have him really taking a big jump for a full season without Demaryius. I got his yards per reception coming down, just 944 yards, 4 touchdowns. So still going to have some value there, especially in full PPR leagues, but I do think you have to be a little bit careful with Emmanuel Sanders with the health situation. He is already running routes, so that's good for him because I think the route running and the ability to work intermediate is going to be big.
Yeah, you're a lot higher. You're a bit higher on them than I am.
I am a bit higher on them.
Yeah, on him for sure, but
Yeah. As far as Cortland Sutton goes, I have some concerns about Sutton's efficiency. There's some things he needs to show in order for me to fully believe in that. Late last season when the receiving core was banged up, you were looking for Cortland Sutton to really take that step up after the Demaryius Thomas trade and Emmanuel Sanders got hurt. That didn't happen. He made Tim Patrick look good. 95th in target separation, so he's not separating. Just 34.8% contested catch rate, which is how he's going to make his hay. Drop rate was 7.1%. Not great quarterback rating when targeted, not great underlying numbers. So you got to see a lot of things come up for Cortland Sutton. Is just 50% catch rate. I mean, nothing underlying on Cortland Sutton looked good. And we knew that. We knew coming into that last season that Cortland Sutton was a very, very raw prospect with a ton of athletic talent that was going to have to figure out how to play a wide receiver at the next level. And from everything that shows, he didn't necessarily do that. You flip the script to Deshaun Hamilton. Hamilton's 17th in target separation, just 2 drops, 50% contested catch rate, 49th in catchable targets. Steve Smith was a very, very good route runner. Deshaun Hamilton, very, very good route runner without the athletic upside. If Flacco can work underneath, or if they decide to be a little bit more timid with this passing game, which Flacco last year worked a lot of short stuff, then Deshaun Hamilton's going to be a steal. Deshaun Hamilton's going to be a good person to own. Deshaun Hamilton is a good flyer to take because, like another guy, Tyler Lockett, who's going to see way more target volume, we'll talk about him next week, the underlying numbers on Deshaun Hamilton are incredibly good. That being said, I've got them and Sutton, more or less splitting targets, 92 to Sutton, 81 to Hamilton. Not a whole lot for anybody else that's behind them. 50 and 58 receptions, respectively. 5 touchdowns for Sutton, just 2 for Hamilton. I do think Cortland Sutton's the wide receiver 2 on this team through sheer athletic value, and I think he does take a step forward. But Deshaun Hamilton's the one I'm really watching if I'm looking for somebody that might be usable to me this year. I want to try to get, because I think you are going to get more consistency out of Deshaun.
Yeah, Deshaun could be like your new Adam Humphries. Better Cole Beasley in terms of that consistent 5 to 6 targets. Should have roughly 4 to 5 catches a month. So with some upside to him. I agree with the touchdown upside. It's not there for him. It's more for Sutton and Noah Fant for the most part. It just speaks to the receiving core and just the massive unknown on how this could all unfold. If Sanders isn't healthy by week 1 or gets banged up early and is on that Devonta Freeman type of trajectory where he's not going to play anyways, it could give more of a Sutton to Hamilton bump, even though Flacco and his traditionally low volume. And it's just tough because the offense in itself isn't a big upside to them. It's just whether or not Flacco can make one of these guys supportive if Sanders is not.
There's not a lot of upside to this offense anyway, which is the other reason I like Deshaun more, and even Emmanuel Sanders, because you're not relying on upside from those guys. You can draft them at a value and rely on their floor.
Yep.
You mentioned Noah Fant, so let's go ahead and talk about Fant. He was generally regarded as a very, very good move tight end coming out of college that didn't block as well as T.J. Hawkinson, who was seen as more of the complete package. Fant and Hawkinson were easily the 2 best tight ends in this draft class. And then you look at what else Denver has on their roster. They've got taken a tight end that had hype around them from the fantasy community or the general media in the last 3 drafts. They still got Troy Fumagalli. They still got Jake Butt. Jake Butt was another good move tight end without the touchdown upside of Noah Fant or the big playability. Jake Butt more Jack Doyle. Troy Fumagalli, we thought he was trash. And then you've got Jeff Hireman still there also, who flashed a bit last season. And if Noah Fant does have growing pains, could take some of that work away from him. Because even though he's not flashy, not going to be fantasy relevant, he is a solid veteran that knows how to play the position. So what do we make of this Denver mess? Because it is a mess. Obviously, we all believe in Fant's talent, but do we believe in him year 1, or do we think it's a cluster?
It's tough because, we and I talked about this briefly off air too, just with what to expect from Fant. Is a Fant or Hawkinson, things like that. It's tough because you want to look back at Flacco's years with the Ravens and you see what he's able to do with the Titans there. Dennis Pitta, got the guy before him. I can just not blanking on names here, but he's always had a productive tight end with them. But then you look at the receiving core around them and how the team has been built, and you start to wonder, well, was it more of the offense than it was Flacco? Did it make more sense for the offense to funnel towards their tight ends and towards more of the underneath stuff than it is for him to, push it downfield? Because last year, when he was healthy with a guy like Mark Andrews, who we also like coming out of Oklahoma, didn't really flash either, and more so until Lamar Jackson took over.
Mhm.
So now you have this, this conflicting narratives on whether or not Flacco is going to be great for Noah Fant. He's a rookie tight end. There's guys there, as you just mentioned, but Fumagalli and Jeff Hireman, who could steal snaps from him. The way that I projected the tight ends here, I just projected Fant, and I pretty much projected what the tight ends could do as a whole here. I gave Fant 72 targets, 46 catches, just shy of 600 yards and 4 touchdowns. I think that's pretty close to a ceiling.
We're not
Obviously
that far off.
yeah, that could be higher, obviously, if a bunch of injuries happen. But just historically, tight ends in year one just doesn't get on the field much. And even if they do, they're not used as much in the passing game. They have to learn how to do more so. Running routes as a move tight end, running routes as the inline tight end, blocking schemes. You got guys behind him that should already know the offense or feel more comfortable with the offense. But again, as I've mentioned, numerous times now, this whole offense has changed. So
Yep.
I think I'm a little aggressive on Fant's projections, but I'm also not going to go out there and reach for him either.
Yeah, I don't think you should go out and reach for Noah Fant either, just because this offense has so little upside to it. Despite Flacco, just as a whole, it has so little upside to it. I did project Noah Fant at his ceiling as well. 73 targets, 50 receptions, just over 600 yards and 5 touchdowns. So same neighborhood.
Yep.
But that's at his ceiling. I think that Noah Fant can have an Evan Ingram type of rookie year, which is to say that he's going to be in that relevance area without being week-to-week relevant, which is what Evan Ingram was his rookie year. There's a lot of similarities between the two. They're both big, athletic guys who are much, much more regarded as move tight ends coming in. But you do have things behind him that could be annoying. He's not somebody I want to go out and spend any form of draft capital on and redraft. I do think there's upside there, but that's upside I want to pluck off the waivers after somebody's frustrated with him the first couple weeks, and then he comes on and figures it out. Or, I want to pair with somebody else, like maybe a Vance McDonald per se, and kind of take 2 and hope 1 hits. But he's not somebody I want to just go roster alone with some form of draft capital and say, okay, we're good. I'd rather bet on TJ Hawkinson to be that as a rookie tight end than Noah Fant.
Yeah, I think Hawk's the only guy it's the only rookie tight end that I would even consider in majority of my redraft. Like he's in like even tight end premiums, even 2 tight end leagues. I mean, Fant's draftable in those deeper leagues and those different scoring settings for tight ends and roster settings, but it's tough because he's still a rookie tight end. I'm not gonna place a lot of faith in trying to get upside in that rookie tight end with a bunch of other people who could get targets within this lackluster offense.
Yep. I'm right there with you. All right, that's enough about the Broncos. We spent a decent amount of time on them. Let's go ahead and move it along to the Chargers, which should be a little bit shorter of a discussion. Not a lot's changed here. The biggest thing that's changed with the Los Angeles Chargers is the loss to Tyrell Williams. Other than that, Melvin Gordon and Keenan Allen are not guys we have to talk about a lot. When they're healthy, they're good. Allen's going to be a firm wide receiver 1. Melvin Gordon should be your favorite running back after Kamara and Christian McCaffrey and Zeke and all of those guys go. He is consistent year in, year out. He's got touchdown upside. He's got receiving upside. Not quite as efficient as those guys and does have injury concerns every year. But Melvin Gordon is a late first-round running back, just like he's been. Now, on to the guys that you're less sure of. I hear a lot of hype about Phillip Rivers, and I projected it out, and I can't necessarily buy into the hype of even that Phillip Rivers is my favorite late-round quarterback. He had a great season last year, but, we clamored for this with Matt Ryan, too. The efficiency that we saw out of Phillip Rivers last year was insane. Do you think he repeats? Do you think he's the late-round surefire quarterback 1 that he's being hyped up as? for a lot of people, or do you have him projected at less than that?
No, he's in that mid to high end QB streaming range. I think he's like 14 or 15 at this point. He falls in a line of quarterbacks who offered no rushing upside, but will provide you with good passing numbers. See Drew Brees, Tom Brady, fucking all the rest of them that are like that. It's the passing attempts that concern me because this is a great defense. This is a great running team. As we saw last year through a massive stretch, Rivers didn't throw the ball a lot. And if you have a quarterback on your fantasy roster that's only throwing the ball 25 times a game, you better fucking hope that he's going to be Russell Wilson. In his massive touchdown percentage upside, that's not Rivers. I think his was 6.5 last year for Rivers.
Yeah.
I expect that to come down to more of his average. Yes, he's adding in Hunter Henry. Yes, he's getting Mike Williams for another full year in terms of being healthy, removed from his neck injury. But you lose Tyrell Williams. The offensive line should be healthier, which bowls better for the running game, I think, more so than the passing game. So Rivers 556 attempts, just shy of 4,400 yards because he is a yards guy. I do still have him at 32 touchdowns, but 14 interceptions. No rushing upside to speak of. And that's kind of where he falls. He's just a streaming option at this point. He's not a guy that I want to go out there and draft because I know in 2 to 3 weeks after the season starts, he'll be on waivers as a bye-week fill-in eventually.
He's a guy that's not going to be a ton of upside, and he's going to be frustrating. And
Yeah.
I think there's guys you can get around that time frame that I like a bit more. I agree that he's a streamer, and you pretty much just said every point I have to make, really. The touchdown percentage is not going to stay. I got him at 556 pass attempts.
Wow. Love it.
4,500 yards, just over. 32 touchdowns, 13 picks. So, well, pretty much same ballpark as you. He's a guy that's got a big arm. He has the ability to be consistent. Or not a big arm, but he's got a consistent arm. He's going to be consistent week in and week out. You're not going to get a whole lot of bust weeks from Phillip Rivers, so he is a safer option, but he's going to be in the teens for me. He's not somebody I'm running out and clamoring for as just great value that's going to be surefire upside.
Yeah, I mean, he's like your normal older aging quarterbacks who have no rushing upside. I mean, that's just what he is at this point.
Yep. Transitioning real quick, Austin Eckler's the other running back. I think his role is probably about the same as it was last year. I just want to hit on him real quick. To where if the Chargers are winning a game, you're going to get a startable week at Austin Eckler. But if they're not, you're not. So he's a rosterable piece. He's somebody you can plug in that you're going to get some floor out of and get some value out of as a change of pace back. At this point, I think we know what Austin Eckler is. Do you mostly agree with that?
Yeah, there's not much of change. I think I have him at a right over 100 touches, 700 yards, and 6 touchdowns. That's who he is. This is Melvin Gordon's back healthy.
Yep. Are you buying the Mike Williams hype?
I am buying him that he's going to score some touchdowns. I'm not buying him that he's going to see over 100 targets because I don't think this offense is going to yield another receiver outside of Keenan Allen who's going to have over 100 targets because Mike Williams, even with Tyrell in and out of the offense, to banged up, even when he was healthy, I don't think it matters because you just put in Travis Benjamin instead. Mike had 3 to 5 targets per game for majority of the season.
Yeah.
He's all touchdown upside. And yes, if Keenan Allen gets hurt, there's upside to him as we saw against the Chiefs last year, but that was also against the Chiefs and a team that you have to pass against because you can't keep up with just running the football. So yes and no, I'm buying it. It's tough to say because I think his hype has finally died down a little bit.
As it should. Mike Williams is a wide receiver 3. Period. He's not. You are right. He's not going to see 100 targets. People are all over Mike Williams because Tyrell Williams left town, but what people seem to forget is that Tyrell Williams only left 64 targets on the table.
He had 1 less target than Mike Williams last year.
Yeah, it's not like he's leaving an insane number and you're bringing Hunter Henry back, who's going to demand some of those targets. So all of those targets are not going Mike Williams' way. And even if you project him at a little bit of an increase, you're still just kind of in the 80 to 90 target range, which is not going to yield you a wide receiver 2 with the efficiency Mike Williams has. He's a contested ball guy. He's not a separate guy. He's not a great route runner. He's a guy that's supposed to go up and beat people, and you get kind of hot and cold with that. See Dante Moncrief through all the years he was getting hype. So
See Tyrell Williams.
Tyrell Williams, exactly. So I'm not buying into Mike Williams is a lot more than what he was last year, where his hype was last year. Let me put it that way. I think he's going to pay off on it more than he did last year, but he's not going to take the massive jump that a lot of people are projecting. It's going to be another small step for Mike Williams. He's going to have touchdowns. I got him projected for 9, 859 yards and 61 receptions on 90 targets, but he's not the sneaky Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are going to be the next Diggs and Thielen or Juju and Antonio or whatever.
Yeah, and like even if his touchdown upside is a bit lacking, because last year it was just him. There was no Hunter Henry. You had a corpse of Antonio Gates. You bring Henry back. You have a healthy Melvin Gordon back, and his touchdown upside isn't even as high as it was last year, and his touchdowns were wildly inconsistent. There's 2 or 3 games where he had multiple touchdowns.
Yep.
And you just can't expect that from a wide receiver 3 on a lower passing volume offense.
You can't project touchdowns. You can't rely on touchdowns in your projections. Let's put it that way. Nobody else outside of those two that I'm even looking at from a wide receiver standpoint, honestly.
No on Travis Benjamin.
Yep, no Travis Benjamin. There's a little bit of hype of Dylan Cantrell a couple weeks ago. No to him. They're probably going to split whatever 100, 130 targets or less amongst those two and a few other guys. So I wouldn't expect anything out of that. We've mentioned him a few times. They're returning Hunter Henry. There is no Antonio Gates as of right now to really be a nuisance to him. How do you have him checking in after missing most of last year?
It's tough, again, because he has yet to play a full season as a full starter. He's always been in that shadow of Gates. Then when he was finally left out of that shadow, he gets injured and he's gone for the whole season. So we don't know what to fully expect. I went a little bit higher on the upside because I've always been a big Hunter Henry fan. And the fact that Rivers was able to transition in terms of his tight end usage from Gates to Henry, that didn't really seem of a huge drop off in terms of that. So I feel a little more confident in projecting Henry at more of a ceiling than his floor. I have it at 86 targets, 61 catches, 793 receiving yards, and 7 touchdowns. I think him and Mike Williams are going to be the guy, in the red zone when they're passing it. And I think Henry will have that type of third down role and share some of that intermediate work that would have gone to Keenan Allen instead.
85 targets, 60 receptions, 778 yards, and 7 touchdowns.
So you're right. Okay.
There you go. We're
good.
We're right even.
We're chalk.
Hunter Henry is a guy that you're going to take in that Austin Hooper range, those late round, those tight ends that kind of sit right before you get into the cluster of them. So they're not the elite tier, but they're not caught up in the mess either. He's right there in that group that's going to separate themselves, I think, a little bit from the pack. People have forgotten about him, so he's going to be at a decent value, at least for right now, until people start to remember he exists. But This is an offense that is always targeted tight ends heavy. From the offensive coordinator to the head coach, they have always been big on tight ends. I think aggregate, which is an average of the team, the OC, and the head coach, 109 tight end targets a year, and it's mostly just Hunter Henry there. So I do project him to have a big season.
I don't see Virgil Green or the other guy. I don't even think there is another guy taking more targets away than they should.
No, I don't either. I don't see any situation where that happens barring injury. And we know that he's an athletic guy, so he's going to be more than your, high 9s, low 10s yards per reception tight end.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and hit a beer review, and then we'll finish off with the other two teams, the Chiefs and the Raiders, those two.
Beer review.
All right, Dan, these aren't the blueberries you're looking for from Triptych. Traditionally very, very good beer. It's an anticipated yearly release. Can't talk today. What do you think?
I finished my beer already, so if that already says enough, then yay. But as for the beer itself, it's what it's advertised. It's very heavy in the blueberry taste. It's not super syrupy, that as I would expect from more of the puree from that standpoint. So that makes me happy. It's not super tart, but I didn't expect a whole lot of tartness when it comes to my blueberry sour, so I'm okay with that as well. It's just a very good, easy drinking type of beer. I'm gonna have to go grab another one before we jump to the next team because I kind of want to keep drinking them. So great job to Triptych. It's not super acidic either, so you can have a couple of these and be okay.
Yep, I've also had that beer. It's a very, very good drinker. Not heavy on the blueberry at all, as Dan said. Not too lip puckeringly tart. Another solid release from them. I was drinking a beer from Unita, Clear Days, from Unita Brewing out of Salt Lake City, Utah. It's a juicy IPA, and it's exactly what you'd expect out of a West Coast IPA. Very juicy, very, very grapefruity. Little acidic, but not overly. Not too terribly bitter. A little bit of a dry at the end of it on the finish, but very crisp. I am also out of it, and since I did the pick your six things, I don't have another one, so it's just gone. But very, very good drinker. It is definitely one I would break out again this summer while I'm lounging poolside or something like that. It's again kind of a nice, refreshing relief from all the hazy and milkshake IPAs that are out there. As this one is not a hazy, just a standard West Coast. So good for them.
Yay!
And before we go ahead and break into the other one, I just want the IPA landscape. How much has that changed in 2 years with the transition to hazy versus a little bit beyond the beer review with the transition to hazy versus all of the West Coast that we used to see?
It's been nuts because it's funny because you hear like traditional brewers have just trashed on hazies, but because they're so easy to make in terms of just in comparison with most other IPAs and just other beers in general, it's a very common beer for new breweries to go out there and craft. And with the boom in microbreweries and smaller craft breweries, it's really helped hazies. And then with hazies, you get the milkshakes that are just the vanilla and lactose variants of them. And it's been fucking huge. I mean, thank God the brewed IPA crashed and burned because those sucked. But I'm all for the hazies and milkshakes, but I'm also all for a great West Coast IPA. I fucking love them.
And you don't see as much of the West Coast anymore. I mean, it has all gone
That's
hazy,
true,
which has a more intense flavor profile, but it's also less bitter. It's typically easier drinking. And like you said, when you get to milkshake, you can do you start putting that lactose sugar in, and then you can do a lot of different things with it.
And then you have now the rise that's starting to make it through the craft world is the smoothies and then the slushies that are coming from it, which is more of a fruit ale with lactose and vanilla and milk sugar and things like that. So now you're getting into the rise of, I guess, the lactose, vanilla, and milk sugar movement that you can start to see more and more of on top of the hazy IPAs.
Yep, just an interesting trend I wanted to toss out there because, it seems like when we started this podcast, every IPA that was on the shelf was West Coast, West Coast, West Coast. We were drinking a lot of West Coast, which all the flavor in a West Coast comes from the different hops that are used. It's not necessarily additives. And now when you walk in there, it's like it's flip-flop. M43 was really the only hazy you could get consistently, and it's like it just went boom, and here's all these hazies, and you can barely find a decent West Coast other than what people normally keep in their rotations. So
just because everyone's dry hopping everything. Everyone wants to dry hop, all the hops.
Yep. It's the new trend. Just something I wanted to toss out there, get a little bit beyond the beer. So let's go ahead and get back to the NFL now after that little bit of a break. We're going to cut right back into the Chiefs. We will talk about Patrick Mahomes a little bit, although he's still a must-own. Travis Kelce is a guy we're not going to spend a lot of time on. Kelce's my tight end one. Do you disagree with that at all?
Spoiler alert, I have Travis Kelce breaking records.
Travis Kelce's in a tier of his own for me. Yeah,
he is. He's where Gronk is, and I think if Hill gets more than he's in the 4 games that he's projected, he is. Travis
Kelce's my tight end one, and I think he's my tight end one by like 50 points. So
he is where Mahomes was last year in terms of points between 1 and 2.
Yep, it's a big one. He's separated himself from Ertz and Kittle, who are clearly in a second tier.
I have him at 58 more points than Ertz right now.
Yep, that's about where I'm at.
But That's right.
About where I'm at with him. So moving on to Patrick Mahomes, we're going to spend not a lot of time on him. The only thing I have to point out there is the fact that he is a bit of a regression candidate this year. You can't deny the amazing season that Patrick Mahomes had and what he was able to do. You've got a potential 4-game suspension looming for Tyreek Hill. The always questionable health of Sammy Watkins, and just the fact that repeating numbers like that is just unlikely. So I say he's a regression candidate. I personally have him regressing a little bit. That being said, he's still easily my quarterback one. He's going for over 5,000 yards, 45 touchdowns, 14 picks with another 200 plus on the ground. So I don't have a whole lot bad to say about Patrick Mahomes. Just if you're expecting last year, okay, yeah, maybe don't, but that doesn't really mean anything for how you should rank him because he's still clearing away the number one.
Yeah, I have the regression hammer hitting him a lot harder in terms of touchdowns, because 50 touchdowns is insane to begin with. I have him back down to the high 30s, low 40s, where I think he'll likely end up, just because that's like, you just can't expect a quarterback to throw 50 touchdowns. His 5,000 yards isn't as insane that he threw last year.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I did have him coming down a little bit because of the Tyreek Hill regression, and then the Watkins being slightly banged up, and you're adding newer receivers in this offense to replace Chris Conley as your number 3. But he's still far and wide of a number 1, not so far off as he was last year. He's only a point per game higher than Watson, but he's clearly worth being the first QB drafted. He is not being worth drafted in the first round in redraft leagues, single QBs, of course. So again, don't reach for Mahomes, even though he is this year's Watson.
What would you consider a reach from Mahomes? Where do you think you should be drafted?
Rodgers was a fourth round pick last year. I think you can feel comfortable with that. I feel more comfortable with Mahomes and what he can do within this offense and with Andy Reid and his weapons around him. But traditionally, I'm someone who doesn't take quarterbacks early. But I think 4th round, if he's still there, late 4th, I'm okay with. But he'll go obviously 2nd round and probably 1st round in some leagues.
Yeah. I'm not taking a quarterback 1st or 2nd round or even 3rd. That'll never happen. Or at least early 3rd. It's probably 308 and back that I'm okay with Patrick Mahomes. I personally probably wouldn't take him in the 3rd. I might consider it in the 4th, but it's 5th or 6th where you're going to get me as well. Just because there's some other guys that are going to go later that I think can give me production. If it's not Patrick Mahomes production.
Carson Wentz we're super high on is like an 8th round guy. Yeah. I mean, Mahomes was a late round guy last year, and that's what
he was 10th, I think.
Yeah, like you want like even a Matt Ryan, Ben Roethlisberger, like give me somebody 6 rounds later that can provide me almost the same weekly floor. I mean, not the same, but at least provide me, far and wide a point or 2 less per game. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, between him, the way I have it projected at the 1, and Jared Goff, we'll call it Ben Roethlisberger, who's my 11, is 5 points a week. So I think you can get more variance out of the wide receiver, running back position, or other guys you're going to take around that time frame than 5 points a week between a guy like Patrick Mahomes or a guy like Jared Goff, Ben Roethlisberger, Baker Mayfield, people in that area, which Mayfield's going way higher too. That's just where I have him ranked. But
exactly.
Jared Goff, Ben Roethlisberger, a couple good guys to throw out there as late rounds.
I mean, fuck Dak Prescott.
Dak Prescott also there.
Traditionally, I've not liked Dak. I mean, not hate as again. We hate ADPs, not players.
We hated Dak's ADP the last 2 years.
Yeah, but Dak. I mean, again, he won't be Mahomes, but Dak is my late round quarterback I'm targeting. Spoiler alert.
All right, moving on to the running back situation. Talked a little more on Mahomes there than initially teased, but not a bad idea because it deserves to be talked about. Damien Williams, buying or selling that hype, and if you're selling it, how do you project Carlos Hyde?
I am buying Damien Williams. I know what his previous stats have suggested, but he's a 220 on back who can pass and catch. He's got size adjusted a speed of I think a 4.45. He ran it for his 40. So I'm buying it. Yes, his offense should support that, but Carlos Hyde has been on his 4th team in I think 18 months is what I've heard on the various shows and Twitter reads that I've saw. I don't really care about, was it Dexter Williams, whatever the guy is they drafted in the 6th round, Darwin Williams.
Darwin Williams,
He's
who
180
actually was
pounds.
not bad, but he's
No.
180 pound back.
He's not a bell cow. And yes, we like James Williams, but he's looking like a practice squad guy in year 1. So Damien Williams did redraft, and in 1 year this year for dynasties, I want Damien Williams. I got him at 206 rushes because I don't think this team's going to run the football a lot. They don't need to because they don't, run a lot of plays because they're all big play teams. But I got him at 1,390 total yards and 10 total touchdowns. He's a firm RB2 in my eyes with RB1 upside if this defense, again, struggles this year.
I do not believe in Damien Williams. I'm not buying
I know
Damien Williams.
You've never liked him.
I'm sure not buying Damien Williams at the price that Damien Williams is going at.
That's
which
fair.
I believe in SFB mocks is 3rd round.
Yeah,
I am
he's
not on Damien Williams at his price right now. Just 9.4 carries a game when he was the quote unquote starter on 13 touches overall. Just 1.67 yards created per carry. Evaded tackles were just kind of average, just 2 of 5 games over 100 scrimmage yards. Yes, he's a 220-pound back. Yes, he's behind an offensive line that can run block. But again, I don't like backs that don't show that they can create for themselves. And, I mean, we saw Damien Williams behind a bad offensive line. You flip that when he was in Miami. You flip that to Carlos Hyde, more evaded tackles per game behind an offensive line that ranked about 40 points worse in run block efficiency, the higher juke rate, and more yards created per carry than what Damien Williams had. I mean, when you compare the underlying numbers, Carlos Hyde would seem to be the better and more talented back, and then you put him behind a good offensive line. You got to wonder what you're going to get in comparison to a guy like Damien Williams and how that's actually going to unfold, and if you won't be in a situation where Hyde is going to be the more efficient back because the underlying numbers were more efficient behind an offensive line that was graded much, much worse. So that's kind of my diatribe on why I add Damien Williams, why I want to take a double-digit round draft pick on Carlos Hyde and not Damien Williams, and not a 3rd rounder on Damien Williams.
And this speaks to the show question. We haven't had one of these in a while. Nick asks, which running back besides Williams are you willing to take a shot on in redraft and dynasty between Hyde, Darwin Thompson? Again, I don't think James Williams is relevant this year.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely Carlos Hyde for me.
It's all Hyde. Like even if Damien Williams sucks, is Hyde. If he gets hurt, I think it's Hyde. Hyde may not see the full-on, bell call type of work. You may see more Darwin then, because I don't think Hyde is a good pass catcher. He's done it when he's been asked to.
Did it, and it wasn't necessarily pretty, but it wasn't terrible either. He was basically Lamar Miller.
Yeah, to go back to Damien, real quick, he's not a cream hunt. I don't have him projected in the same type of efficiency. He's not great creating for himself. He doesn't elude a whole lot of tackles. It is the offense itself, but it's also Williams the factor. And I don't think they've added enough for him to lose RB1 status right now. I mean, not like RB1 status in terms of fantasy, but it's RB1 status on the team right now.
So, yeah, touch-wise, I have him just a bit behind Carlos Hyde because I do see Hyde being more efficient and those touches eventually shifting. I'm not saying that Damien Williams is going to completely fade because I don't think he's going to go away. I think the worst-case scenario is kind of a 60-40, 65-35 towards Hyde.
Yeah.
I think that either way, and even the other way around, I think if Damien Williams is used, what you saw at the end of last year tells us a lot about how they want to use Damien Williams, and it's not as a bell cow. So I think that Carlos Hyde, on the flip side, could, still give you some game-to-game flex value, even if you're rotating in with another piece or something like that. So, again, you give me a 12th rounder in Hyde or a 3rd or 4th rounder in Damien Williams, I'll take Carlos Hyde all day because you get any value there at all at any point in time. You're happy with that.
I would have gave it's just like the fact that I just don't see this in football a lot. That's why, like, even with Williams' rushes is low in terms of a starting running back. I just don't see this team running the football a lot because they don't have to, and they pass to their running backs regardless of what the score or what the game script should entail. Which is why I think Williams only saw, 12, 13 touches
I
as a
have
start
I
last
have
year.
a bit below what their average has been.
Yeah.
Over the last couple of years, typically about 417 a year. Got him at 404 in total. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I do still think they're going to throw the ball close to 600 times. But this is a team. When you say I don't think they're going to run a lot, well, okay, but
They
this
don't
is a
throw
team
a lot
who's
either. They
no,
ran
they're efficient.
947 plays last year. That's it. Like this team,
I had that coming back actually because of good offense.
I have it coming up a little bit, yes, but not a lot.
Not a lot.
A bit. But I also have a soft spot for Williams because he won me 2 championships last year. So there's that too.
I do not.
I
All right,
know.
we got to talk about the wide receiver situation. Tyreek Hill facing a 4-game suspension. I do not have him projected for that yet because it hasn't been announced. When it's announced, I'll project it.
I projected him for 12. If I've done that yet.
It's gonna happen. I
it's-
just won't do it until it happens because you don't know when it's gonna happen. And the thing with Tyreek Hill for me is that if he were to play a full 16, he is actually points wise my wide receiver 1. Now I won't leave him there once I adjust all that, but he's a top with Hopkins and Adams, really a top 5 wide receiver
in my points per game. Yes,
in points per game.
He is definitely a top 5 for me.
The question with Tyreek Hill is not going to be can he produce. It's going to be when that 4-game ban comes down. How comfortable are you with taking him? Let's say that it is issued during training camp. You know he's going to miss it starting in the season. Where are you drafting a guy that once he's active is going to be a top 5 wide receiver, but you already know you're missing 4 weeks of him?
I want him in round. I'll take him in round 3, round 2. I mean, it's like Zeke when everyone expected Zeke to be, with him missing 6 games, start of the season, he was still a 3rd-round pick. Yes, running back, but still a top 5 player at his position. When you see Tyreek Hill, is a game changer in fantasy, and is, in your redrafts, you want to take a guy who can give you that game changing, type of production and that mid rounds. Hill is the guy that I want to take there. Yes, you have to be concerned with what, is it going to be more than 4 games? Is it going to happen mid season? But if it's early season, to start with, I'll take that shot on Hill and just ride my 2 or 3 extra guys before all the bye weeks start. I'm completely fine taking a shot at them early.
Yeah, for me, probably round 4 at the earliest on Tyreek Hill, maybe even round 5. Is where I'm comfortable with it because again, he's going to be a number 1 receiver when he comes back, but you're missing 4 weeks. There's guys you can get to fill that in if you look at its schedules. I mean, Colts, Lions, Texans, Dolphins, the first 4 weeks for the Chargers jumps out. You could fill in with Mike Williams, who you might be able to get a bit later. Titans, Jets, Rams, Ravens for the Browns. I mean, you might be able to get Landry still a bit later on as a fill-in. I mean, there are people you can get to fill in for those 4 weeks that have really good schedules over those 4 weeks, and then go from there after the fact on what to do with Tyreek Hill. So, I do think he's still worth the top 5 round draft pick. It's going to be how far does he fall, and I think if he gets down to round 4, depending on where I'm picking, that I've almost got to do that, knowing the way I would draft, that would probably give me 2 top-tier wide receivers, and I can find somebody to fill in for him.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But, that all changes if he doesn't have the suspension by the time the season starts, and you get into a situation, okay, when does it happen?
And it might be a thing where it gets pushed back to next year. We saw it with the Vikings from, 7-8 years ago with the with the Stargate problem. So it's you don't know when it's going to happen. You just have to ride when it does.
If it doesn't happen in training camp, I wouldn't think it happens mid-season. I would think it wouldn't happen before the start of next season is the approach I'm going to take.
Yeah.
Sammy Watkins, do you see him as healthy, first off?
No. I have him playing 12 games.
I got him playing 13. I also
which is fair, obviously.
Yep.
If he's healthy, he's a beast. I think in this offense, especially if Hill is suspended during that time.
Heck, he's the one you could go out and get to fill in for Tyreek Hill. They don't have that bad of a schedule to start off.
I've been taking Watkins in a lot of best ball leagues. I've taken Watkins in a lot of mock drafts that I've been a part of. I'm not afraid to take him as my wide receiver 3 or 4 because I believe in the depth of this receiving core as a whole, not just the team, but in terms of fantasy wise, you can get a lot of value throughout the first, 10 rounds, 11 rounds even. And Watkins is a guy that I'm willing to take a shot on because if he'll get a bigger suspension or if Watkins stays healthy and steps up, they paid Watkins top 5 receiver money. They see something in him. So
I think everybody's seen it in him when he's healthy. Just a matter of he hasn't been able to stay healthy.
Of course.
So if he's healthy, I agree, he's a beast. And on a per game basis, I've got him doing pretty well. Got him projected at just 80 targets over that 13 games. So I mean, if you were to extrapolate that, you're close to 100 basically. 58 receptions, 784 yards, 8 touchdowns. I think Sammy Watkins is a very productive wide receiver too when he's healthy. And I think that if the Tyreek Hill ban does come down in training camp, you just stack him and Sammy Watkins if Sammy Watkins' price doesn't go through the roof.
That's a good call.
So
I like it.
Moving on to the third wide receiver there. I don't want a third wide receiver there. It's Demarcus Robinson. I think that's probably got the inside shot at it. I don't think it's Mecole Hardman. Seen Demarcus Robinson do things with the Vikings when he had the chances of 3. He was with the Vikings, wasn't he, last year?
No, he was always.
Oh,
you're thinking of a different Robinson, but yeah, no. Demarcus and best ball. Yeah, and as a late round, just a random pickup in Dynasty. Like he's probably free. Maybe not right now.
Aldrick is who I was thinking
Aldrick Robinson you're thinking of. Demarcus, though, if he's whatever wire pool, just pick him up and stash him just in case.
Either way, Demarcus and best ball is going to be good because you could see increased target volume for him. We have seen him pull off some big plays. Kind of the same argument, really, for him if it was Aldrick, really. There's big playability and there's going to be target volume there because I don't think Mecole Hardman is going to be in there initially.
Spoiler alert, we don't like Mecole Hardman here.
No, we don't. I didn't see really anything.
I don't see
Hardman at all. So
he's not Tyreek Hill, for fuck's sake.
Nope. All right, on to the Raiders. No must-owns here, but again, much like with the Broncos, that doesn't mean that they're... I guess Antonio Brown's a must-own.
Antonio Brown's is
sorry.
So
Antonio Brown's a must-own, but Antonio Brown is somebody we got to talk about too because we got to properly set expectations on Antonio Brown.
I agree.
Yeah, Antonio Brown's a must-own. Sorry, that was an oversight on my part. Other than that, not any must-owns here. The Derek Carr outlook, I do expect him to be better than he was last year. Or really the last 2 seasons. I don't expect him to be anywhere near fantasy relevant. He'd be a late round quarterback 2 in Superflex maybe. But just to put some perspective on the shit show that was Derek Carr last year. Touchdown percentage wasn't good. Completion percentage has improved every year he's been in the league, but abysmal 3.5% touchdown percentage last year, which is incredibly low. He has been higher than that for his career and really higher than that his first 3 seasons in the league. Other metrics stayed pretty consistent. He tossed for over 4,000 yards last year, is 12th in money throws. He did throw some bad passes, though. 2nd in danger plays, 4th in interceptable passing, but something we'll talk about later. 4th in deep ball completion, 3rd in true completion, and what really jumps out to me, 8th most drop passes in the league, and they've improved the wide receiver core. So I think improving on those drop passes, getting better wide receivers around him is going to help Derek Carr. I think that touchdown percentage does come back a little bit more towards the low 4s, or at least higher 3s and 3.5. But I don't think I'm not saying go out and draft Derek Carr. I'm not saying go out and draft Derek Carr as a late round quarterback 1. I do think he has. I think you're okay if you get him as a quarterback 2 in best ball, or not best ball, quarterback 2 in Superflex and stacked other positions.
I like him as my 3rd quarterback in Superflex, as a guy that I can hopefully trust in bye weeks. I agree with you completely. He's not a redraftable guy in single QB leagues. He just doesn't provide the upside. I think he's been you said 3.5 touchdown rate last year. I think he was low 3 2 years ago. And in 2 years, he still had almost a full season of Amari Cooper. The receiving core did get better. They did lose Jared Cook, his trusty tight end. They didn't really have anybody else at that spot. The offense as a whole should have gotten better. But Carr has been someone that we've been really mixed on. He showed upside when the talent was around him and the team showed up in terms of wins or when they were playing in garbage time. But the last 2 years suggest said, I'm not willing. I'm not willing to take a big shot on him. But I wouldn't be surprised if everything rises in terms of his yardage or his yardage touchdowns. He's been fairly clean with the football in terms of interceptions. That's been pretty low for him.
He has been. I mean, again, the
which has
danger
been
throws
good.
and the interceptable passes didn't look pretty. It almost suggested he should have thrown more than what he did, but
Yeah, that's
he's never
true.
thrown more than 13 in a season. So,
But again, though, when you have a less than passer for your quarterback with no rushing upside to him, or with very little rushing upside, I mean,
you just
I have
can't
him
do
at
it.
28 rushes and 70 yards. He's not really worth a whole lot in fantasy. He's more of an NFL style okay quarterback, but not one I want in fantasy.
So I did go back and fact check the low threes a couple of years ago statement. His rookie year he was at 3.5. Other than that, it was 5.6, 5.0, and 4.3.
I thought he was in.
He's 4.4
I thought he
on
was
his
in
career.
low three his last, because I know he had 2 5+ years.
I'm looking at Pro Football Reference right now.
Okay,
He's
well, I know.
5.6,
I'm just saying.
5.0, and 4.3. He was 3.5 his rookie year. His career is 4.4.
Okay,
So
I thought it was lower than that.
Nope.
That's. I'll take the L on that one.
Well, that's fine. I'm not trying to. I just wanted to get proper perception because what I was saying, I was on the other side of it to where I thought that for his career he was more closer to 4.5. So I wanted to go back and vet that and make sure that I wasn't spinning the wrong narrative. So, yep, just the trend 3.5, 5.6, 5.0, 4.3, 3.4. So
he might be. I mean, he might be more Joe Flacco.
He could be.
He
But
could
I think
be.
that's probably the case to where he might not be upwards of a 5.5 ever again. I don't think he will be. He's probably going to be in the 4.5. But I think 3.4 is low. I mean,
he'll
you took
regress
Amari
higher.
from him last year. You bring in Antonio Brown. You bring in Tyrell Williams. That's going to go up.
I think I have him at a high 3, low 4.
Yeah,
my touchdown rate.
I don't. Where's my
regardless?
There it is. 4.2 is what I put on for this year.
That's fair.
Moving on to the running back situation. We talked about this a bit in the intro. Josh Jacobs isn't a contract holdout as much as we like Josh Jacobs. If he holds out into training camp, isn't ready to go, doesn't come back till late in training camp, you're talking about missing 2 weeks and having an uphill battle against Doug Martin and Jalen Richard, who are established. How do you see this unfolding with Josh Jacobs? Where are you willing to take him, and what do we see out of Jalen Richard and Doug Martin?
So I took a little different approach to this. I went and looked at the 2017 Saints when they still had AP. The first 4 weeks, I think that's what we'll kind of see here. Josh Jacobs is the Mark Ingram, Richard is the Kamara, and Doug Martin is the AP. And that gives it about 13-ish touches per game for Josh Jacobs. That's before all the news broke out that he's in contract disputes that could change. Just with him losing, value with time in terms of training camp, he could fall behind in preseason. Doug Martin was efficient last year. I think at 4.5 yards per carry. He showed that he could be a more than doubt, decent starter when called upon in a John Gruden offense, who I may add is still obsessed with Doug Martin. So I don't see him leaving the team. But in terms of numbers wise, Josh Jacobs is the leader in this offense in terms of touches, 180 rushes, because he's a good pass catcher, 31 catches. I don't see him leading the team in targets for running backs. So that'll prone him at a firm RB, low RB2, high RB3 for me. 1,167 total yards and 6 touchdowns. I don't expect this offense to be massively productive, so that's why there's a low touchdown mark. And the fact that Derek Carr didn't throw the running backs much last year, so I don't see upside in terms of that. Richard at 71 targets, Doug Martin filling more of that backup role, but he could have more of a role if Josh Jacobs is a slow learner.
Yeah. So for Josh Jacobs, I didn't give him a ton of receptions, and that's because of Jalen Richard, Doug Martin, not because of his ability.
Yeah.
I was very tepid on projecting Josh Jacobs as well, though.
Tough. He was actually tough to beat.
Yeah, he really was. I had him at 210 total touches for just over 900 yards, I think. 8 total touchdowns. So it's just hard to project him. I put him at 13 the game because I don't think Doug Martin completely goes away. Doug Martin is the type of guy that can come in and really give you kind of dual threat. I took more of a Patriots light approach to this with your big back, your back that can kind of do both, and then your receiving back. I've got 80 targets going to Jalen Richard with 64 receptions, over 500 yards there, but no touchdowns, most of it between the 20s. That makes him a PPR only guy to look at. Doug Martin is another late round guy I'm willing to take a flyer on if I'm looking for to hit on something there, because if anything goes wrong with Josh Jacobs, be it inefficiency, be it not adapting to the NFL, be it a contract situation, Doug Martin's instantly the lead back, and we saw with him late last year that that's good for 70 to 100 scrimmage yards.
I actually like Jalen Richard in that, for that same vein, but I also do agree with the Doug Martin take. We got a question here from Fantasy Football Girl Advice. She asked, does Josh Jacobs' ADP drop? His ADP right now in half-point PPR redraft leagues is 3.1. So he's going up to 310. That's far too high. I do expect that to drop. I expect with the contract holdout potentially happening as that keeps coming to light and it keeps getting talked about more, I expect him to dip into the low 4s, potential 5s. I think it caps out around 5 or 6 because there is upside. I've always been a little bit, on the more cautious side when it comes to Josh Jacobs and his touch amount because he's never carried the ball. I think his most carries is 100 or 105, which was last year. He never had a 100-yard rushing game, so it's tough to assume that he's going to all of a sudden turn into a 300-touch guy. So,
yeah, 120 is his most, but the point still stands.
Yeah, 120. You're right.
I'm looking at it because I looked up his passing numbers too.
That's right.
120 is the most. I do think it falls as well, especially if the contract situation continues to happen. I agree with Dan that it's not going to fall much past 5 or 6, but you could see him slip a couple rounds if that contract situation continues to be a thing. But also, as more people start to get into redraft mode, more people start doing redraft coverage. Right now, everybody's kind of in dynasty mode where Josh Jacobs is a second, third round pick. When you start to get more into redraft mode, the fact that he is a rookie, the fact that there are other mouths to feed there, I do think that ADP starts to come down.
Here's something that stood out. Right below Josh Jacobs, David Montgomery at the 402. I'm going to little left turn, but Jesus Christ. Rookie fever is real right now.
Yeah, that's high right now.
We like David Montgomery. I actually like him more than all the other running backs in redraft this year, but fuck, that is a bold statement, Cotton, to take him there.
It is. So, yeah, I'd expect him to come down too, probably in the same range.
Yeah.
Moving on to the wide receivers, Antonio Brown's in town. Tyrell Williams also been brought in. Let's talk about Brown. What do you see from him moving from the Steelers over to the much less offensive-friendly Raiders?
It's just a loss of touchdown upside. Targets shouldn't really change much because who else is he going to throw to? Yes, we like Tyrell Williams. Yes, Tyrell Williams is a thing there, but he hasn't had 100 target season since the loss of Keenan Allen back in 2016. Brown isn't a guy that's known to miss a lot of time, but he's also a guy that's known to take a shit ton of targets away. I got him right at around 28.5% target share, the lower volume offense compared to what he's had in Pittsburgh of recently. We'll push those numbers down a little bit. 154 targets, 101 catches, just shy of 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns. Low end RB1 high, or low end wide receiver 1, high wide receiver 2. The days are gone from being a top 3 guy, but he's still going to be fine. He's still going to be a very productive wide receiver in fantasy this year.
Yep, I think he'll be very productive as well. Now, Reed, very productive. I don't have him in the elite tier. I've got him in the tier just behind the elite tier.
Yep.
Yeah, he's in the second tier for me. I'm the same way as you, though. I got about 159 targets, so I got him at 10 touchdowns because I do think there's not another real red zone threat there other than Antonio Brown. Just under 1,300 yards. So, I mean, he's still solidly a wide receiver 1. Just don't expect Antonio Brown is the wide receiver 1 because he's actually probably about the wide receiver 4 or 5.
He might actually,
at this point.
He actually might be really consistent this year. He might be a Hopkins Adams light because he's the only real, true option there. There's no Juju there. or there's no just Big Ben, just being completely terrible for random, 2-game stretch, or Brown just falling off a little bit because of that. So you may get a little bit more consistency out of Antonio Brown, but the days of those 40-point games are probably gone.
Yep, he's in a tier right now, and with Juju Adams, Michael Thomas, Julio Jones.
He's my wide receiver 10 right now in terms of
he's my
points.
7 in terms of points, and once I move things around, he'll probably actually be my 5.
Okay,
so
I'm a bit lower than.
Yeah, but moving on to Tyrell Williams,
Yes.
I'm gonna take a different approach than what you did to think. Okay, yes, he's never had more than 60 some odd targets, but different offense. The Raiders did throw 550 plus times last year, so there is going to be some volume there for another wide receiver, especially when you take Jared Cook out of the mix. So I do have Tyrell Williams seeing about 98 targets, and I have his efficiency as far as a deep ball guy improving, and that's because of what I mentioned with Derek Carr. 4th and deep ball completion, 3rd and true percent completion. They work the ball downfield, and that's what Tyrell Williams does. And I think you put him with Derek Carr, who has a surprisingly good deep ball, at least as far as accuracy is concerned. That's going to be a boon for Tyrell Williams. So Tyrell Williams is a guy who, depending on where his hype level's at, I might like the value on. I'm not sure what his current ADP is, but 98 targets for Tyrell. I got him catching 62 at 934 yards, 5 touchdowns. That puts him in high wide receiver 3, low wide receiver 2 range for me, because I think the volume is going to be there for him with the absence of Jared Cook on a team that threw 550 times last year. It's going to have a young defense that's still trying to grow into its own and going to have to throw the football. I think Tyrell Williams is the second target getter there, and Derek Carr and Tyrell Williams kind of have some underlying metrics that make me think it's a good fit.
Yeah. So right now Tyrell 1409.
Oh yeah, all day.
So he's a late round.
Yep.
Flyer, which is what he should be. I have him at 85. Yeah, exactly. Upside to him. Like I'm right there with you in terms of touchdowns and his role.
Funchess and Moncrief are like the trio of guys I'm looking at is double digit, even in the teens rounds of upside.
For almost all different regions. I mean, Funchess for touchdown upside. I do have Tyrell a little bit less in the yardage because I think the highest yards per reception receiver that the Carr has had in terms of actually being a true part of that offense has been like 14 something. So I don't know if Tyrell is the true big play guy that they're going to get in terms of like that, like 16 and a half, 18 type of yards per catch kind of guy. But again, he's still going to be
the main
downfield stretcher too. So I mean, it's not. I'm not far off. I'm just nitpicking at this point. So
yeah, yep, I agree with that. I mean, I've got him at like 16 something, and again, I mean, deep targets are still deep targets, and he's not a guy that separates a lot, so he's not going to break off a ton of big plays. He's mostly going to do it with consistently deeper passes caught than other people catching.
He'll have passes. Like 2 or 3 catches this year, go for like 70 plus touchdowns. Like,
yep, easily.
That'll happen again.
There's nobody here tight end wise that I'm interested in. None at all.
I projected Darren Waller because I think he's the starter at this point, but I still don't care.
Oh, I projected Darren Waller. I don't care about Darren Waller, but I projected.
I don't
Darren
either.
Waller.
He's projected.
I've got Hunter Renfrow out producing Darren Waller, if that tells you anything. So
okay, I didn't do any of wide receiver 3s here because, again, I don't care about that either.
I did. So, but again, that's because there's just some things that I don't know until I put them on paper. So
true.
There you go. Yep, that's all we got for this week. Let's go ahead and talk division predictions. We both have the Chiefs winning it. I've got them at 13-3. Dan's got them at 12-4. We've actually got the Chargers at 10-6 and 11-5 in second. We both have the Broncos at 7-9 in third, and the Raiders at 5-11 in fourth. I will say the Raiders 5-11. I don't expect it to be an ugly 5-11. I expect them to be competitive in most games, especially as that defense grows as the year goes on.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders and Broncos flip-flopped.
I wouldn't either, honestly.
But the Broncos, I still think with how good that defense is, and the fact that it's been improving with their last couple of drafts.
Yep. All right. That's, as I said, all we got. We'll be back with you next week to finish off this series as we do the NFC West, and then we'll get into talking rankings, some sleeper guys that we like. start breaking that down. Thank you for everybody that dedicated to the Wrestling for a Cure drive. We're able to donate over $100 to St. Jude's for that. Not enough to see me put through a table. Total for that fundraiser and those guys in their year of fundraising is looking like it's probably going to clear $10,000. I haven't seen
That's
final
fucking
numbers
awesome.
yet, but $10,000 to the kids at St. Jude's. So thank you to anybody that donated. Take pride knowing that you're a small part of that. As for the Midwest FF Expo, we will be there August 18th. Come hang out with us in Canton, Ohio. We'll be there all weekend. We're going to go see the Hall of Fame, I think. Probably get some beer on Saturday. But we will be there all weekend. Promo code beer to save $5 on your ticket. Yeah, that's all I got for this week. Dan, any final words?
That's it. We're good.
That's all, folks. We will see you next time.
Bye.
Wasn't ready for the outro yet. See ya. Oh, follow the show at Beerfield FF on Twitter, Instagram, and Untapped. You can follow me at HotBFF with 2 P's. He's at Theory BFF with 2 F's. Beerfield Fantasy Football on YouTube. Like, subscribe, stuff.
Things. See ya.